Welcome to Let's Talk About Climate. In this episode, we are hearing from experts on plastics about the issues plastics cause for the environment. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development estimated that in 2019, plastic products were responsible for 3.4% of global greenhouse gas emissions throughout their life cycles, with 90% of these emissions coming from the production and conversion of fossil fuels into new plastic products. Once in the environment, research shows that plastic pollution is persistent and may take between 100 to 1,000 years or more to decompose, depending on environmental conditions. Approximately 400 million tons of plastics are produced annually. Over 50% of plastic only gets used once and thrown away, and over 9%, or only 9% of plastics ever produced globally has been recycled. Plastic Free July is a global movement that helps millions of people be part of the solution to plastic pollution. As part of Change the Chamber's contribution to this movement, I'm joined here today by Dr. Marcus Eriksen. Dr. Eriksen lectures on marine conservation, especially the impact of plastics on the world's oceans, breaking down the complexity of stakeholder objectives and identifying common ground and actionable solutions. He has led more than 20 expeditions and has written multiple books. He is also the co-founder of Five Gyres, driving innovative solutions to plastic pollution and advocating for policies to reduce the harms of plastic waste. Additionally, he's the co-founder of Leap Lab, where he and his team inspire local resilience through a love for nature and science. Their three goals are to restore the biosphere, design a better future, and elevate all people. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. That was a big intro.
Yes.
A lot to
Well, you've
cover.
done a lot.
Hmm.
Awesome. So, to get started, plastic pollution is specifically endangered marine ecosystems. According to Clean Water Action, marine plastic pollution has impacted at least 267 species worldwide, including 86% of all sea turtle species. Pew Trust posits that some 11 million metric tons of plastic enter the ocean every year. An estimated 300,000 whales, dolphins, and porpoises die every year from discarded plastic fishing gear. In fact, plastic is expected to outweigh all the fish in the sea by 2050. So, how exactly is so much pollution entering our oceans, and what is this doing to our marine ecosystems?
Well, a lot of the statistics you mentioned, they're changing constantly. The research is changing all the time. We get more information. For example, that number of how many species impacted, it's over 2,000 now. And that's evidence of everything from ingestion to entanglement. And it's also terrestrial animals as well. Like I published a paper 5 years, no, 3 years ago on the plight of camels eating plastic waste. Went to Dubai, and I was pulling out like between 40 and 80 pound wads of plastic bags out of dead camels.
Wow.
And that come from me being an ocean guy, spending all my time there, realizing the impact on land is tremendous. And I have, for example, hiking my backyard in Griffith Park near Los Angeles. I remember coming across a bird nest that was only Easter basket green straw, that green stuff. So the impacts are widespread. How does trash get in the ocean? Um, it's coming in from everywhere, from microplastic fibers that are blowing in the air, like the way sand and dust flows from sub-Sahara sands to the Amazon. You're now finding lots of microplastics up there at the highest altitudes. It's also going down our streets. Every time I survey an urban river, I get tons of flecks of plastic bags, little plastic film, I assume are from bags, in the middle of the ocean. And I've been across the North Pacific gyre about five times, around the world a couple times, surveying all these accumulation zones. And they're full of microplastics. But when you find things you can recognize, it's mostly fishing gear. There's a bias there because fishing gear lasts. Fishing gear is designed to be in the ocean, like a fishing buoy from aquaculture in South Korea. That thing will have, it's a giant little ball that's about almost 2 centimeters thick of solid plastic. It's going to last as it floats across the ocean and lands in Alaska. But a water bottle will not. So we do find lots of single-use plastics entering the ocean from our rivers and streams, off of populated coastlines, from shipping lanes. Tons of small single-use items enter that way. That's your bottles and straws and bags and sachet wrappers for small amounts of commodities. We find those in rivers heading out to sea all the time. They get pushed back to shore. About 70% gets pushed back on beaches remotely around the world Other 30% gets in the middle of the ocean and just breaks down at fragments into small microplastics very quickly. So I would say, plastic enters the environment, all environments, from all possible sources, from all kinds of sectors, whether it's agricultural film covering strawberry fields, or it's some fishing net that's UV degrading in the hot sun, or it's a straw, or a bag, or a styrofoam cup, or it's a tourist that left their jacket in Antarctica on accident, that I say that because I found one.
Oh, wow.
So there are multiple sources from the textile sector, from single-use packaging sector, fishing sector, smoking materials. You get lots of little cigarette butts. So, the world uses plastics in every sector, and they're all leaking plastic trash into all environments. So that's my very long answer to your question. If you could,
Yeah, that goes in perfectly to you mentioned microplastics. And so I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about the process of removing plastic waste from our oceans, from these big pieces of plastics down to the microplastics.
well, you've got organizations doing plastic cleanup. There's an organization, one has these big nets they deploy in the North Pacific trying to capture trash. And you got lots of organizations doing beach cleanups. I don't focus on cleanup. I'd rather focus on prevention. For example, in a few weeks, I'll be heading to to Geneva for the final debate on the UN Treaty on Plastic Pollution. Stopping it at the source has to happen. It's almost like you may not remember, but there's a hole in the ozone layer back in the early 80s when I was a
Yeah.
little kid. And that was a huge issue. Every class was talking about the hole in the ozone layer. Well, it wasn't until national policy said, let's stop putting these refrigerants, the CFCs,
Hmm.
in in refrigerators. International agreement solved that problem. No one was out there cleaning up CFCs in the environment. We're saying, okay, what's there is there. It'll go away in time, but prevention's where it's at. So I do advocate cleanups, beach cleanups mostly.
Hmm.
I think if we monitor our beaches worldwide, get organizations, coastal groups everywhere, pick up trash off the ground, because if you don't, it's on its way to the ocean being downhill from everywhere. You've got to pick it up off the beaches. That's the easiest way. What's in the middle of the ocean, it's making its way to a beach near you. It's not going to be in the ocean for a long time. Despite what some organizations that do ocean cleanup might think, it's not out there for a long time. It's washing ashore pretty quick. So I do advocate for beach cleanups, coastal cleanups, but I put all my time into upstream policy.
Hmm.
Upstream means where the problem begins at the
Yeah.
source. I advocate for smarter materials. Like I'm really into biomaterials. No
Hmm.
reason why we can't take seaweed and make new kinds of packaging. And that's being done by a few companies I really love. Um, yeah, so and I guess the last thing, I think I mentioned cleanups.
Hmm.
I do advocate cleanups. Got to get out of the ground before. And what's on beaches also, if you don't pick it up, it's going to get reanimated by next storm and washed back out to sea again. So you
Yeah.
got to do cleanups. But I'm really interested, one thing you mentioned was how long plastics last.
Hmm.
It depends on the environment. You put a plastic bottle in King Tut's tomb, it'll be there in 5,000 years.
Yeah.
You put out on top of a rooftop in Arizona, it's going to shred the microplastics pretty quick.
Yeah.
You did ask how to clean up microplastics. I don't think that's possible. Here's what I think has to happen. We have to accept that what's out there now is going to settle and become sediment. There's going to be this layer of sediment worldwide that is going to be between 1950 and 2050. This layer of sediment with some plastic in it. It'll be an excellent geological marker for the Anthropocene.
Yeah.
Uh, but I want to focus mostly on how do we prevent this stuff? Shift to a different material that's more benign. And you've got PHAs and PLAs and PBAT and PHB, all these acronyms for these materials made from natural materials, natural products that can serve the same function as plastics. They're reuse and remanufacture systems, repair systems, those exist in the world. Refilling stations. There are lots of these business solutions that work. So it's getting into, I guess, a frame of mind for civilization that we can package, we can move goods plastics. We don't
Mm.
need to have them. Now, I'm not anti-plastic because plastic has a place. A lot of technologies, artificial hearts. You can see a lot of uses in the long-term use situations, like PVC piping in construction. There's a lot of that being used. I've used in my home when I repair pipes in copper or in terms of its time, how long it'll last, and galvanized. We don't use lead pipes anymore. I don't find many PVC pipes in the ocean or the environment, but I do find the single-use plastic junk.
Hmm.
Straws and bags, styrofoam, foam polystyrene cups, bottle caps, they're everywhere. There are systems that exist to replace those, and that's where we need to go.
Yeah, I think that leads super well into my next question. Talking about these single-use plastics, plastic used in food processing, food packaging, and even the plastics in cookware can release microplastics into food and are often only used once or twice. In the last few years, we have seen several foods be recalled for plastic contamination issues, and a study last year found that even our fruits and vegetables have microplastics in them. Microplastics were even found in the blood of 80% of people tested in a recent study. So, what does this contamination mean for our health, and how can the food industry change to reduce plastic contamination?
What's it mean for our health? I mean, that's the research front line. I began an oceans guy. When I began 15 years ago, the questions were, where's the trash in the ocean? Where's it going? What's the impact? How much is out there? And we answer those questions. Let publications exist. Now the frontier really is human health. We're really trying to figure out um, what's the impact on people. And you mentioned one study, the amount of microplastics you find in human blood. We have found micro nanoplastics inside human placenta,
Mm,
in the human brain, in human tissues and organs, accumulating in organs. It's everywhere. It's in every beverage you're drinking.
yeah.
It's all over. So that frontier, the human health, and it's not just the microparticles themselves, it's also all the contaminants, the plasticizers on them.
Hmm.
Like to make sure that, paper doesn't get soaked with the pizza grease from your slice of pizza, they had something called PFAS,
Yes.
perfluorinated carbons. That stuff, hyper persistent, and it has impacts on humans. So do phthalates and BPA. Those are materials that will soften plastics. Like the reason why a rubber ducky is very soft, without phthalates, it's as hard as PVC. It's the same stuff, but you add phthalates, it becomes very soft.
Oh,
Rubber
wow.
ducky that's made from phthalates is basically a phthalate popsicle. And if you give it to your kid, and a phthalate, they are a very well-established endocrine disruptor. In fact, the other one, BPA, bisphenol A, that's still in bottles and cans is 1930s when it was first synthesized. It was synthesized by the medical industry to be an endocrine or to be an estrogenic compound. It was going to be given to women to increase their estrogen levels.
Wow.
It made a better plastic. So they put it into plastics and
Oh
into
my
packaging.
gosh.
So I mean, women and men are getting a dose of estrogen from these BPA laden products. So it's not just the plastic polymers themselves, it's also all the additives that are
Hmm.
leaking into the environment and they're residing in people. So that's the frontier. That's where, when I go back to INC 5.2, the next UN treaty, that's a conversation we're going to have with a lot of different delegates. It's about the human health impact.
Yeah.
That's often going to drive change more than the poor sea turtle, poor whale, poor camel. Even though I'm concerned about those, some people, when you say, "Hey, it's your kid, it's your young boy who has these feminized chemicals, they become feminized from chemicals in their food,"
Hmm.
that's going to hit home to a lot of people.
Yeah. You mentioned PFAS, which is something that we've actually written a few articles about at Change the Chamber. And so I'd like to hear more just about there any policies that you're currently seeing or that you hope to see or that you hope to be discussed at this UN conference surrounding PFAS?
Well, I mean, there's lots of discussion of these forever chemicals, trying to get them out
Yeah.
of civilization, that we don't need them. And many of those are on plastics. I mean, you mentioned PFAS, phthalates, BPA, and there are a host of others. The forever chemicals, those two words, forever chemicals, are playing a big part in this treaty.
Mm.
And I think the world is recognizing some of these have to go. Of course, the countries that are making the chemicals, they don't. And there's a large coalition called what are they called? The like-minded group.
Hmm.
For most of the oil-producing nations, they want to derail and kill this UN treaty.
Yeah.
It's going to hit their bottom line. They're no longer going to be trillionaires because there are going to be limits on growth in plastics and plastic associated chemicals. PFAS being one. So getting those forever chemicals out. And again, that's the research focus. I had a chance to, meet a couple colleagues, most recently in Charlotte, with a group called um, back of the name for a second. This group, they got together scientists and uh, Secretary RFK Jr. We took the stage, and there were four scientists talking to RFK Jr., talking about policy and his MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. Whatever you think about other policies, zeroing in on just forever chemicals, he's committed to advancing some policies to get those chemicals out of packaging and products. Oh, it was the Ocean Plastic Leadership Network that put this on.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm a little bit encouraged hearing what RFK Jr. wants to do on forever chemicals. If he can pull through on it and not upset the American industries that make those products, then that's great. I want to
Yeah.
see that happen. He's also focused on microplastics. And I just recently sent a letter to his staff saying, microplastics are a byproduct of macroplastics that break into smaller pieces. Microplastics, you don't know where they came from. They could have been a cup, a bowl, a straw, a bag, a bottle. You don't know. So
Yeah.
instead of focusing on microplastics, because the only solution there is cleanup, trying to get them out of sewage treatment, but filters in those treatment plants or different drains. If you focus more on the products themselves, the most polluting products, ones that are breaking down quickly,
Yeah.
that's the best impact. So trying to get them to focus on the products, not the packaging, not necessarily microplastics. Go to the
Yeah.
source where you're breaking down from.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned the current presidential administration and a recent executive order released on March 28th, the National Strategy to End Use of Paper Straws promoted the use of plastic straws rather than paper straws. And there's been a lot of talk about how the current administration is taking environmental regulations and plastic production and then domestic economic demands, those sorts of things. And so I was wondering how you see the future of this current administration's relationship with plastics and how can the average citizen help protect plastic alternatives through policy?
Wow, that's a big question.
Yes.
Um, I, I I found the paper straw ban to be absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, paper straws, they do work. If
Yeah.
they get soggy, it's because you have it in your mouth for a half hour. Don't do that. Use it first. They work great. And why would you not want to use a paper straw if you know that plastic straw, if it gets lost, it's going to have a negative impact on the world around you.
Hmm.
Why not do the right thing?
Yeah.
I thought that was very much a political PR move rather than something that's logic or based in science.
Yeah.
The science said is the right move. In fact, most scientists and most policymakers, the High Ambition Coalition, the majority of members that are voting for this UN treaty, who want a real strong
Mhm.
treaty, they're all about let's phase out single-use plastics and find the smart materials, whether it's paper straw or some biomaterials making an alternative. That's the direction the world needs to go. So that was just a silly setback. It was unnecessary, a ridiculous political move. So that said, where's this administration going to go on policy on plastics? Not very far, I think. I mentioned Robert Kennedy Jr.
Hmm.
because I think he's focused on human health. That's his thing, make America healthy again.
Yeah.
We were able to reach out to his staff and say, plastics and forever chemicals, this is right. This is in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
How to deal with forever chemicals. And he agreed. And hats off to him for really paying attention to this issue in terms of in the human health context. And I believe he's going to give it his all to get rid of forever chemicals the best that he can and deal with some of the packaging that create microplastics.
Yeah.
But I think the power is local. It's
Hmm.
organized locally, and locally, the big challenge there is you've got the plastics industry working with ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Commission, to pass these preemption bills. Preemption bills, they have nothing to do with what's good for people. They're 100% about what's good for the industries that want to sell plastic throwaway stuff.
Yeah.
The preemption bill says, and the reason why they exist is because states are getting good at, well, cities are getting good at banning the products that were polluting their streets and their rivers, their waterways, their drains, getting stuck in storm drains, getting stuck in trees. They're like, we don't want all these plastic bags and bottles and things trashing our communities.
Yeah.
They would ban them. You had a couple states that had bans popping up in cities across the board. For example, in California, 10 years of city after city banning plastic bags, 100 cities banned plastic bags, and the governor said, "Okay, let's make it a state thing."
Yeah.
Industry recognized the power of that grassroots movement, the power of citizens in cities to decide for themselves what they want. And they undermined this democratic process by saying only the state can do that. The state preempts cities. It's blatantly undemocratic. If you in your community, a majority of your community, if you as a citizen vote to eliminate plastic bags from grocery stores, to go back to paper reusables because you're tired of plastic bags in your trees, I got to tell you, industry is trying very hard to undermine your democratic privilege to do that by
Mhm.
pushing preemption from state to state. So that's where I think, if we can work at the grassroots level to stop preemption, to
Yeah.
reverse preemption bills. They did so in Colorado and they won.
Hmm.
Reverse preemption in Colorado. It's a great model for doing it across the country. That's why I think policy can focus. This administration, I'm not very confident. The UN treaty is going to be challenging because the industry is so powerful and the oil producing countries are so powerful. I'm I'm really focused on, what grassroots organizations can do, what the private sector can do to find a replacement that really works and bring those to market as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I think that's great. And your future with the UN conference, I want to kind of take this bigger global look at plastic pollution. And plastic pollution is a significant environmental problem in much of the developing world. And rising urbanization and population growth are driving increased plastic consumption and disposal with the projected six-fold increase in plastic waste by 2060 in Africa. In Malaysia, it is estimated that an average of 9 billion plastic items are consumed each year, most of which end up in the ocean. Bangladesh dumps nearly 2 million tons of plastic waste annually. And much of this is done in its capital, which has a population of 24 million people. Vietnam generates 1.8 million tons of plastic waste, of which about a third ends up in the ocean. All of this is to say that plastic impacts all of us, but disproportionately affects those who cannot afford the intricate systems that are required to dispose of plastic waste properly. So, what can be done about this dire plastic problem in developing countries specifically?
Well, that's where the UN treaty has a role. Like one of the big things that the High Ambition Coalition wants, the majority of countries want, they want a legally binding treaty is first and foremost. Can't be voluntary. That will undermine the treaty everywhere. But
Yeah.
one big provision is to end the trade of trash. So
Hmm.
many countries were moving their trash. For example, in the US, you had cities like in California, I think San Francisco was boasting high diversion rates. But a lot of diversion was putting their recyclables into shipping containers and sending it to China.
Yeah.
Once China said, no more, laid down the national sword back in, I think, 2018, I think is when they did it,
Hmm.
which meant no more imports of trash from the United States. That was half of the US's trash.
Yeah.
That's plastics that we can't recycle here. They were sending to China. As soon as China said no, we tried sending to Malaysia and Vietnam. So I think one big thing is to end the trade of trash. Rich countries no longer sending trash to poor countries.
Yeah.
In those countries, of course, you got to improve waste management. You need more modern waste management systems. At the same time, this is where I talk with the private sector. At the same time, usher in alternative materials, For example, small little sachet packets. A
Hmm.
tea bag size little plastic pack holds a few drops of shampoo or a few little pinches of tea. That becomes very affordable in many parts of the world. Sachets probably sold by the billions every minute in the world. They're
Yeah.
just small delivery systems. They trash all the countries you mentioned. I've been to all the countries you mentioned, and their communities are trashed by small plastic bags, sachet packets, little cheap straws, and so forth. Their waterways are often choked with plastics. So to find an alternative that has cost price parity with plastic, if you can make like, for example, a PHA or PLA,
Hmm.
maybe more PHB, these are polymers made from organic materials that have a very short life when used, but they function.
Yeah.
Then, if they are lost, they're going to go away in the environment.
Hmm.
You've got to accelerate those, the adoption of those, make them super cheap so it meets that need. That's one big provision that needs to be set in place. This UN treaty is not going to address the private sector. It's not going to create subsidies for these companies. But from the private sector side, that needs to happen. Find ways to subsidize R&D to get these products out there, bring them to market, make them cheap enough so we can afford it. That's got to happen while countries improve waste management and while the UN treaty ends the trade of trash internationally.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned the trade of trash because my next question was going to be about that. I know that Indonesia recently banned plastic import waste, and so,
I
uh,
didn't know that. Good.
yeah, yeah. So really great that you mentioned that already. So as we wrap up our discussion today, I would love to bring this back to our audience. As a youth-led movement, we want to speak directly to our youth followers. And so, what would you like to say to America and global youth interested in fighting against plastics?
What I always say, often people say, what can I do? What can the average citizen do? And to youth, we have a really big youth ambassador program, and we give like small scholarships.
Hmm.
We organize seminars, webinars for youth. But what I would say to everyone out there is get organized. Get together, get organized. Think of the policies you want. If you want to join any coalition anywhere, find out which policies actually work in one country. You can modify it, make it work in yours. But getting organized. There was a group that I met as I was in Bali, Indonesia, called Bye Bye Plastic. It was a couple of kids, like 12, 13 years old, a brother and sister, I think, that began a campaign to eliminate single-use plastic bags from Indonesia. And they're winning. The organization is growing, their influence is growing. I meet so many youth around the world doing amazing things. One person I met, more than a decade ago. Her name was Crystal Ambrose, met in the Bahamas. She was already getting organized, created an organization called the Bahamas Plastics Movement. And she was getting youth involved. She met with the president of the Bahamas eventually, and they banned plastic bags. Now she earned her PhD, and she's doing amazing, amazing work. I love meeting young people. Young entrepreneurs today. He makes a little soap marble. It's a dry little soap marble. You can make a lather in your hands. Comes in a paper box. He was 16 years old. His family helped him hire a chemist, made a product, pitched it on Shark Tank, and he said no thank you to their offer. It wasn't good enough.
Wow.
When I last followed up a few years back, I looked at him. He had just raised 3 million in his first round of funding.
Oh my gosh, what was his name again?
Again,
You cut out.
I it's blank on his name. The company's
It's
called
okay.
Nobe, Nobe. Just
Okay,
there's so
awesome.
many examples of youth out there. Um, Company Laura, I forget her last name. Laura in New York. The Simply company is making everything plastic free.
Wow.
And she carries around her 1 year of plastic waste in a little mason jar. And it's like the band
Wow.
on her arm from going to a hospital. It's other stuff she got without asking for it, airline tickets and things. She just puts the stuff in this little one jar. That's all she uses. She walks the walk.
Hmm.
So I love meeting people. That's where it's at. And one advice, two words, get organized. And
Yeah.
then go to your city council. Begin
Yeah.
a Make a product, begin a company. And I've never gone to city council with a youth ambassador with me and had the council members tell that young person to sit down. They'll tell me to be quiet. If we get the young person up there, they're, they're not going they're going to listen.
Yeah.
So I tell young people, your voice is powerful. Get organized and make change happen. Make it happen locally first, then change the world.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing answer. Um, yeah, thank you so much for joining us and helping raise awareness for Plastic Free July. I think this has been such a fruitful conversation, and I'm so excited for our listeners to tune in. We learned a lot about the impact of plastics and what we can do to be a part of the solution. So, before we wrap up, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share with our audience and any links that you want to put in, we can put in the description as well.
Well, I think I would just toot my own horn, 5gyres.org, an ambassador program. It's growing.
Yep.
We're involved in mostly science and policy, work with the private sector to find new materials. I think go to 5gyres, a lot of stuff is there. But there are so many organizations that work on this issue. It would not be hard to get organized and find a partner locally near you to work with. And also, follow the UN. Go to UNEP, plug in UNEP, the UNEP and the Plastic Pollution Treaty,
Mhm.
and follow the conversation. You'll be fascinated how the dialogue is going on there, the treaty.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you to be there, kind of representing this view, and hopefully something good will pass. So
Fingers crossed.
yeah. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and rate us 5 stars. It really helps. Follow us on Instagram at Let's Talk About Climate Pod and Twitter at Talk Climate Pod. And visit us at changethechamber.org for more. You can find all the links we talked about today in the description. Until next time, this is Let's Talk About Climate. Thank you for listening.